In this lesson, we're going to talk about creating different leg poses which perfectly match the character's body in different views. So this is the controller in which I've put the turn body slider. As you can see, in pose 0, the legs are fine. In pose 1 and 2, the legs are disfigured, as well as pose -1 and -2, which I need to edit them. To make my job easier, I'll hide the layers that are not needed and just keep those ones that I do need. I will shy all the layers and just unshy the ones I need. I also need the bone of my character's right leg, so I should keep that as well. After that, I'm going to rake this skeleton. I appear its position. As you can see, it has an unrounded number, which in the front pose as the main pose, it's better to set the position of this skeleton to 0. Therefore, I select this layer, do it, and click on 0 to set its position to 0. After doing that, I go to the controller, and on pose 1, I need to rake this skeleton using expression. So I alt-click on the character's leg skeleton position, I enter the expression section, and first I need to define the turn body slider here. I'll define it as S variable. Make sure to put a semicolon at the end of the line, then go to the next line, and since the position property is biaxial and we only want changes to be applied on x-axis, it's better to define x and y of the position separately to be able to make changes only on one of them. I define x and put a semicolon. The next line I define y and put a semicolon. In the next line, I put brackets, and since the position is biaxial here and we have only defined the variables so far, we need to insert the value for x and y of this layer as well. I'll insert x and y in the brackets, meaning whatever value the position of x and y had before this expression, it will still have the same value from now on without any changes. Okay, then I put a semicolon and go to the next line. And now we need to use the if-else command here. I type if and open a parenthesis. Here we need to specify that when the slider was on 0, or I better say when the character was in the front pose, we want the result to be the x and y or 0, 0 value. So I insert x and y. Well, after defining the position of the skeleton layer in 0 pose of the turn body slider, I copy this expression and go to the next line, and here when the value of the slider is 1, I want the character's leg skeleton to move forward and be placed here. Let me do it more accurately. It must be almost here. That's 50. Let's reset it to 0 and here insert x plus 50, so when the slider is on position 1, x must be added up with 50 and the character's skeleton be placed here. If you check it now, you'll see that on position 0, the skeleton is in its place, and when I go to position 1, it moves more forward and matches perfectly with the character's body. I go to the next line and copy this expression again. Let me delete this for now. I go to position 2 and disable the expression for now. In this pose must be placed here. It's almost 60, so I cut the 60 from here and insert plus 60 in here. Okay, it's fixed here too. Again, I copy this expression. That's for the position which the slider is on -1, and I copy it for -2 position too. Note here that this is the right leg of our character. So when it turns left, the right leg is the front leg. But when it turns right, the right leg would be the hind leg. Therefore, its position would be a little different, and it needs to be leveled with front of the body, not back of it. Okay, it's almost 45 here. Again, I cut it and add plus 45 to position -1. Sounds great. Getting to -2. Here, 61 looks good. So I add plus 61 to X and reset it to 0. Now if we take a look, we'll see that the character's leg in all poses matches the character's body. As you see, when I go to the right 3/4 pose, the skeleton of the character has moved forward, but the lower part of the leg hasn't moved, so the leg has a slightly crooked. In order to fix it, I copy this expression again and paste it for the controller position of the character's right leg. You can see that it's perfectly upright now. Let's check everything. All positions are good. The next point here is that when our character turns left, the right leg is the front leg. But when it turns right, the right leg would be the hind leg. So this layer must be placed under body. Although in the layers arrangement we see that this layer is on the body. Now what should we do? We must duplicate these 3 layers and place them under the body. And since they are the hind leg of the character, they must be a little darker. So I'll add an effect level to it and darken it a little bit. Let me hide these, and I'll paste this effect for other layers as well. I hit the shy option to hide the extra layers. Well, after duplicating the layers, we must specify that when the character turns to the left, only the layers on top of the body layer must be shown. And when it turns to the right, only the layers under the body must be shown. That's why I select this layer and press T to show its opacity. Alt-click on it, and again first we must define the slider here. Let me light the control so it's always visible. I define the slider here, put a semicolon, and as long as the opacity is uniaxial, we don't need to separate the axes, so I'll use the if-else command and type if the slider is on 0 or 1 or 2, show this layer. So I must type if the slider is greater than or equal to 0, then opacity equals 100, else opacity equals 0. Okay, let's check it out. Let me hide the layers related to the right hind leg, as well as these two, and just test this layer which I created expression for. It's visible in position 1, 2, 0, but hides when I go to position -1 and the opacity of this layer turns 0. The same happens in position 2. Well, in order to do the same thing for other layers as well, I'll just need to show their opacity and parent it to the opacity which I wrote expression for. Okay, let's check out what we've done. It's all good, but when it comes to -1 and -2, it hides. I'll copy this expression again and go to these layers which belongs to the right leg but are the hind legs of my character. I'll show their opacity, paste right here, but now I want to say when the slider is less than 0, then it equals 100, else it equals 0. Let's take a look now. On -1, you can see that only this one appears, and the layers related to the front leg of my character will hide. So I'll show the opacity of these two layers and parent them to this opacity which I created expression for. Now if I show these two, the 0 position is okay. -1 appears back layers and the character's leg darkens. Technically, these layers related to the character's hind leg will appear and the layers related to the character's front leg will hide. As you can see, it's perfectly rigged without any problems and we can animate it. Okay, that's all for now. In the next lesson, we're going to rig the character's left leg too.